What's up guys, it's your boy Onel, this time with a brand new series, a bit different than my regular content. The series is about getting to know former football legends, their past, their history and their struggles. In the first episode we'll talk about Roberto Baggio, the Divine Ponytail as he was nicknamed. His story begins in 1982 in Vicenza. When he was 15 years old, he got his chance in the first team, trying to help Vicenza move up from Serie C. Goals, but also very bad surgery. That's what he experienced while playing for Vicenza. Fast forward to 1985 when he signed his first professional contract with a first league team with Fiorentina. Unfortunately, just before he was supposed to move to Fiorentina, his injury relapsed and he had to go through surgery again. This time it was an even worse injury and the doctors told him that he'd never play again. However, the Viola team had honored the agreement to take him to Florence despite the terrible injury and would undergo another operation. Something that not too many people know is that he was allergic to painkillers, which meant that Roberto Baggio felt every one of the 220 internal stitches to reattach the ligaments in his right knee. It looked like a football career that barely started was already over. However, he never stopped to believe in himself and returned to the game after 18 months of recovery. In his first 2 seasons at the club, he managed only 5 Serie A appearances. Whilst critics continued to question the art of Baggio, the player perfected the art of war. When he appeared at his most vulnerable, he was usually at his most deadly. When he appeared subdued, he would often have a moment of brilliance to decide a game. When it looked as though the light was dimmed, it would return just as brightly as ever before. By 1990, he scored 39 goals for Fiorentina as a second striker or a central attacking midfielder. Meanwhile, he was selected for the national team as well, and why wouldn't he? Italy was proud to have a real killer that was doing great damage in Serie A. Let's take a look at what did Baggio to the famous Napoli with Maradona on the field. A 60 meters run where he dribbled every player, he dribbled even the keeper with a body feint, then scored. Enjoy.
Accade male, ma il pallone non giunge alla punta azzurra ed è la Fiorentina ancora con Muso a partire in contropiede. Bellissimo lo scatto e il gol incredibile di Baggio.
In 1990, when he transferred from Fiorentina to Juventus, the fans rioted. They were so frustrated and so angry that their star was about to go to Juve that street fights, burned stores and no less than 50 injured people followed after the incident. All because the Viola fans couldn't bear the thought that Baggio was no longer with them. However, all of these incidents were forgotten because 1990 was also the year of the World Cup that took place in Italy, and every single Italian supporter hoped they could see the Squadra Azzurra lift the cup one more time. However, Argentina managed to eliminate Italy in the semis, but nonetheless Baggio made an incredible mark at that World Cup, scoring the goal of the tournament.
Now Schilacci. Giannini. The ball pushed up for offside, the check. Schilacci is in an offside position if it's delivered to him yet. But still, Baggio. Oh yes. Oh yes. Oh yes! What a goal by Baggio! The goal all of Italy wanted to see. The man they wanted in the Italian team has delivered the goods in spectacular style. One of the goals of the competition so far. That ball was glued to his right foot all the way into the back of the net.
After this goal, not just Italy but the whole world understood they were dealing with a world star, even if he was only a reserve at that time. In his Juventus time, Baggio was expected to take up the number 10 mantle relinquished by Michel Platini in the 1980s and lead Juve back to glory. This was an altogether different mission for a player who would soon be sporting the ponytail, which gave birth to his immortal nickname, Il Divino Codino. the divine ponytail. Once again, a new Baggio was born. But despite winning the Ballon d'Or, European and World Player of the Year awards, Baggio was only able to help Juve win the UEFA Cup before the World Cup in America in 1994. At this point, Baggio was also the fulcrum of the national side, beating off stiff competition from Gianfranco Zola, Roberto Mancini and Beppe Signori to be afforded pride of place in Arrigo Sacchi's side. Truth be told, it was more a marriage of convenience between the two, Sacchi recognizing the brilliance of a player who, though not suited to his usual pressing system, was simply one he could not afford to do without. After Italy had sneaked through the last 16 on goal difference from a weak group, it would be when on the verge of elimination against Nigeria in the last 16 that the divine ponytail finally came to life, scoring a late equalizer and then a penalty in extra time to send Italy through. And despite Italy being outplayed for much of the quarter-final against Spain, it was that man again who won the game late on, taking on goalkeeper Andoni Subizarreta one-on-one late on to send Italy through the semi-finals. Against surprise package Bulgaria, Baggio was on a higher plane for the first half hour of the game, scoring twice to help ensure Italy's progress. But there was a sting in the tail as he picked up an injury that meant he made little impact in a World Cup final against Brazil and the other great player of the tournament, Romario. The drama, of course, came in the penalty shootout as Baggio missed the spot kick, which handed Brazil their first World Cup in 24 years.
Brazilian simply has to score himself and Brazil win the World Cup. So the pendulum has swung wildly against Italy now.
Roberto Baggio, the saviour of Italy throughout this tournament. He's missed it, and Brazil win the World Cup.
The picture of Baggio, hands on hips, head bowed, became the defining image of him. The Icarus of Italian football, whose greatness took him and Italy close to the sun, but which ultimately burned one of the country's greatest players. Worse was to follow. Despite being at the zenith of his career, new Juve coach Lippi did not see Baggio as a linchpin of his new look side, trusting instead in a young Alessandro Del Piero to team up with Gianluca Vialli and Fabrizio Ravanelli up front. Injuries and the substitute bench would afflict a player who had just started in the World Cup. Less than 20 league starts and 8 goals was Baggio's contribution to Juve's first title win in a decade. Juve's progress to that point and Baggio's immense contribution almost seemed forgotten as the club now wanted the player out. They had offered the World Player of the Year a new contract with a 50% pay cut to stay, as clear a message as any. Baggio's legion of admirers included AC Milan. Remarkably, Juve allowed Baggio to join their chief rivals. The combination of joining his colleagues in the national team, Baresi, Maldini, Albertini, along with the arrival of the explosive George Weah, whose pace and enterprise would surely give Baggio greater freedom between the lines, made it look like a match made in heaven. However, despite winning Serie A in his first season and taking it away from his old side in the process, Baggio's net contribution fell below the standard he had set in all but his final season at Juve. Baggio won 2 titles in 2 seasons with 2 different clubs, but his inability to own these 2 successes appeared to have marked his cards. He would never win another Scudetto. Baggio started the 1996-97 season in good form alongside Weah, but early elimination from the Champions League, a major dip in league form and the failure of the club's summer signings to shine will lead his coach Tabares being sacked. He was succeeded by Baggio's former Italy boss Sacchi. "I feel like a Ferrari being driven by a traffic warden," was how Baggio described his limited involvement with the first team from that point onwards. It ended up being Milan's worst season for years. Capello returned to Milan after 1 season in Madrid, but let Baggio leave on a free transfer. In just 3 years, his stock had fallen significantly, far greater than is perhaps fair. Baggio moved to Bologna after being rejected by Parma boss Carlo Ancelotti, aiming to reclaim his place in the Italy side for the 1998 World Cup. At the time, such an aim seemed fanciful, with Del Piero, Zola, Vieri, Inzaghi and an emerging Francesco Totti who needed Baggio. "Football has a very short memory," Baggio said. "Of those currently playing, I'm still the one who has scored the most goals for Italy, and I've hardly played for them in the last 3 years." The ponytail disappeared as he emerged from Bologna. Some sought symbolism in such an act as a demonstration of rebirth, but Baggio downplayed it. "There was no specific reason for doing it. I got tired and decided to cut it." Either way, the 1997-98 season proved to be perhaps Baggio's finest. The extended solo goals and gallops may have receded, but this new incarnation of Baggio would prove to have greater efficiency and sting. That season saw Baggio score his highest total ever in a single Serie A season, outstripping Gabriel Batistuta and Del Piero at their peaks. The ingenuity was also back in consistent evidence, with some sublime chips, free kicks and dribbling round goalkeepers all on show. Many now clamoured for Baggio's return to the Azzurri, including a number of converted detractors. Cesare Maldini decided to include Baggio in Italy's World Cup squad, and Baggio had done exactly what he had set out to do. "I believe I transformed all the suffering into something positive," Baggio said. The pathway was open for him to erase the painful memories of USA 94. Italy were knocked out on penalties in the quarterfinals, but there was indeed some redemption for Baggio. Late on in Italy's first game against Chile, they were awarded a penalty and an opportunity to rescue a point. It was Baggio's first spot kick for the Azzurri since the Rose Bowl in Pasadena in the 1994 final. And thankfully, for all those watching, except for Chileans of course, he scored it. Baggio would never play at another major international tournament, but with that spot kick he did at least gain some solace. Baggio would then spend 2 seasons at Inter, where he provided flashes of rather than constant genius before he found a home at Brescia, where he would see out his career over the next 4 years. His performances were so good that there were calls for him to be included in Italy's squad for Euro 2004, but his time had come. And after the endless cycles of repeated deaths and rebirths, Baggio only reached nirvana once he retired. "When I hung up my boots for the last time, it was like being liberated," he told Corriere dello Sport. Okay guys, this is the end of the video. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you think about it in the comments down below. Also, if you have any other suggestions about other players you want me to make a video about, let me know in the comments. And yep, until next time, I'm out. Peace.